and gentlemen, right now, I want to introduce Bo Bolanos, Art Director for Downtown Disney Resort, and the Aulani Disney Resort and Spa. One more time, Brother Bo!
Aloha! I like that. One more time, aloha! Aloha! And welcome. But before we get started, well, another round of applause for these guys, right? Are they incredible? Stefan, you're magic. So anyways, well, thank you for being here tonight. Much appreciated. It's a great night, great event. We have a little story, a little presentation for you to see. First of all, I'd like to thank the people here at the Disneyland Hotel for all the help, all the things that they've done here for this event tonight. Also, our creative entertainment partners for putting all this thing together, and it's great. And also the F&B department, you know, Carlos Siqueira is leading the effort here. Like I said, my name is Bo Bolanos. I'm the art director for Downtown Disney and the hotels here at our property, as well as the new Aulani Resort in Hawaii. And I'm with Walt Disney Imagineering. And I was told, no, there's no magic tonight for me. I was told, a little birdie, to ask the question. I understand there's a Tahitian Terrace cast member here tonight. If there is, please raise your hand. Can you stand up for us, please? My God, thank you. This is fantastic. Thank you so much. And what an honor to have you. And as you know, Walt Disney Imagineering, and together with the parks around the world, we're responsible for creating magic, you know, immersive experiences, storytelling, all the good stuff that you heard throughout the years, and it still continues. And it really means a lot, you know, to be here, having worked at Aulani, to bring the inspiration of the South Pacific to the resort that started back in the days of Walt Disney, with Tahitian Terrace opening in 1962, that was able to inspire other great things like the Enchanted Tiki room at Disneyland that opened in 1963. How about that? Great. You all been there, I hope, right? And I hope that I can hear a louder and bigger applause. How many of you guys have been to the also inspired Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar? Yeah! Amazing. Well, it is a great, well, and actually, I almost forgot this. And because of all these great collections of projects that the company has done throughout the years, we were able to take that knowledge, that experience, to try to do a more culturally sensitive experience, more immersive, more true to the culture, and really pay honor to the wonderful culture of Hawaii, which what we did in Aulani. You know, basically, it's really interesting for me because we're taking the fantasy of the theme park to the realism of Aulani in Hawaii. So. With that, I would like to introduce to you a fellow Imagineer that happens to be a show producer, also responsible for maintaining the show here at the resort, show awareness, you know, good show, bad show, what looks great, what looks bad, doesn't look bad, so let's fix that so it looks great. With that, I'd like to welcome Dave Callback, that has a great little presentation for you guys tonight. He put together with the archive some of those images that you know, up to a month ago, I never seen. There's like probably a handful of those things that when Tahitian Terrace was under construction, that it was just pretty cool to see those, you know, as well as see some of the ones I've seen before. With that, I get Dave here to come and do his thing.
Thank you, Bo. Hi, everybody. How are we doing tonight? Good. Aloha. As Bo said, my name is David Callback. I'm the show awareness producer at the Disneyland Resort. We're headquartered out in back of Indiana Jones and Pirates. Every satellite park has a satellite office of Imagineers, and we are lucky enough to be here in Disneyland. I'm also the producer for any ongoing work at Aulani, so I get to work with Bo on those projects, and I get to go every once in a while, so that's kind of a nice perk. But tonight, I have the pleasure of showing you just a little bit of history. I think we have some images that you probably haven't seen before. Maybe the folks that worked at the Terrace have in the past, but maybe not. We're going to start with this one right here, I think. Oh, if I turn this on, it helps. Okay. So this is construction. Many of you may not realize that the Tahitian Terrace actually started out as a part of Plaza Pavillion complex. This is the South Pacific themed building that is on the backside of Plaza Pavilion off of Main Street. And here's a view of it from the Jungle Cruise River when the Jungle Cruise was being built itself. This is 1954, actually. Actually, you see here we got a little more thatching on, more detail of, I'm going to walk around if you guys don't mind so I can see what you're seeing. A lot more thatching, a lot more decor. And as we get closer to opening, well, still a little ways away, things are pretty much cleaned up. We've got one tree left out there that we're going to plant right in that very spot. And from this point, they're going to start to clean up and work on the interior of the building. Now, Tahitian Terrace began its life with a few different names. Was the Pavillion Lanai for a long time. And you actually did enter in from Plaza Pavilion. You would go in the front, and Imagineers David Mumford and Bruce Gordon wrote their book. Oh, we got Bruce. Very good. All right. Their book, The Nickel Tour, which was based on Disneyland's history shown through postcards, said that it was kind of an oddly mixed experience to go in the front of this Victorian building and encounter a service terrace area which was staffed by tropically costumed servers. And we actually, then you would go out and they would sit on these modern plastic tables out in the back of the area and look out into the Jungle Cruise. So we have this lovely rendering. Anybody know Sam McKim? Does that name ring a bell? This is one of Sam's renderings of the inside of that. And some of you that are kind of close up can see out through the doors on the right-hand side, you can see the filigree of Main Street and the Victorian-style buildings and the service line with our tropically costumed cast members. And a lovely outrigger canoe up in the ceiling. So from there, even though it was beginning to be named Tahitian Terrace, the food had nothing to do with Hawaii, nothing to do with Polynesia of any sort. They had fried chicken, they had spaghetti and meatballs, they had teriyaki, no, I don't think they had teriyaki steak yet. Oh, they had a shrimp dinner and chicken pot pie. So, you know, there you go. But the cool part is you can actually, in this photograph, you can actually see the menu board a little bit right over there to the right if you look into the interior of the restaurant. So things are getting more and more popular. You have to remember this was back in 1955 to about 1960, and exotic far-off places, and Hawaii and Polynesia were still exotic far-off places at that point in time. So it wasn't like right around the corner like we think of it today. It's not a hop, skip, and a jump to get there. So these things were very popular to sit in this kind of an exotic atmosphere. You can see that expansion off on the far left side there. Does that look familiar to anybody? The existing building of maybe, I don't know, some other attraction, I don't know. We'll get to that part in a minute. So here's a rendering with the covered bridge that goes into the show area and the dining area. Unfortunately, this is very lovely, but it didn't last very long, that concept. You can see in this rendering, on the right-hand side, the Adventureland entrance, and the expansion would have been right about there, and that would have been a brand new restaurant. However, something else got in the way of that plan. Now, this is 1960, and in 1960, well, 63, this lovely attraction, one of my favorites really of all time, kind of came at a perfect time. In 1930s, the Matson Line Lurleen ship was sailing to Hawaii. That's the Aloha Tower at the port of Honolulu. After World War II, the GIs were returning, and they had their tales of the South Pacific as well. 1947 on the Broadway stage, and then again in 1958, Rodgers and Hammerstein. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about Thor Heyerdahl. Does anybody remember Thor Heyerdahl on the Tiki? There you go. So Thor Heyerdahl, even when I was a kid in the 50s, we still learned about Thor Heyerdahl and what that took to cross into the Pacific, actually from the east. But those tales of exploration, and then South Pacific. that was kept alive in 1958. And trans-Pacific flights were done by United Airlines starting in 1947, actually. I found that hard to believe. And most importantly, probably statehood in 1959. So all these things were in the American consciousness, and that's what made the Enchanted Tiki Room very popular. Well, I take that back. There's one other thing that really cemented the deal. Anybody have any ideas? Blue Hawaii. Elvis Presley, 1961, Blue Hawaii. Anybody? No, okay. I won't sing. Okay. So, everybody knew that this was coming. They knew that they wanted to expand. They had the audio animatronic techniques down. They were going to do the Enchanted Tiki Room. And they figured at the same time, we might as well put in the Tahitian Terrace. It's very popular with everybody. We can expand it. We can do dinner shows, regular dinner shows. And they did. And they started in 62. Now this Tahitian Terrace is almost ready. You can see the thatched roof there. And there's a big bamboo screen in front of the entryway. Not quite ready. Oh, this is a great story. We're almost ready to open. However, this is a Disney Dendron Semperflorus, okay? Everybody knows what that is. It's the artificial Disney tree. Just like this one, the one that Swiss Family Robinson lived in down the way. Well, this one, they had built, they had finished, they had put all the leaves on, something like 10,057 leaves and flowers, I don't know. And they had finished that. Walt Disney came along, went to the back of the house, and was standing there, and he realized that the folks in the back of the house were looking at leaves and overhanging branches, and he said, we need to raise the tree. We're talking about a steel and concrete tree, folks. And the guys around are like, are you crazy? We're done here. And he said, no, there's a way to do this. So believe it or not, they got a crane, they brought the crane over, they hung it over Adventureland, they hooked it up to the crane, they supported it by the crane, they cut the base of the tree, they lifted it 4.5 feet, they put in steel and concrete on an angle, and they cemented over everything, and they raised the tree 4.5 feet. Sight lines were perfect at that point, and Walt was very happy. So here's a shot, actually, maybe some of you can see the white section of the tree there as it's going down. That's the additional part. You can kind of see that it really does raise the tree up and give you good sight lines. So we've got added decor, we've got costumes, we're ready to open. Oh, a couple more things to fix. Finally, an opening into the Tahitian Terrace. 1962, Tahitian Terrace finally opened. I want the folks over there, there's a young lady and a gentleman over on that side that worked at the terrace. When did you work there? Wow.
83.
Wow. I don't think I wasn't there yet. Anyway, so 62, it opened up in June. And does anybody remember this sign? My favorite sign to see. I loved going to the Tahitian Terrace. I always went there with my folks because I didn't have any money, you know. And it was a little more expensive than a hamburger at Disneyland, but it was a lot more fun. So we found some decor photos, some inspirations for design for the terrace. And believe it or not, there really are not a lot of old photographs and stuff. There are some, you know, if you look at some of the vintage photo sites, you'll find a lot of them. They're all out of focus. I think it had to do with the punch, I'm not sure. But this is pretty much the way it looked almost till closing. And back in the back here, some of you can see, that's the magic waterfall. That's where our dancers and our performers came out of. The waterfall separated, they would come out and perform for us. And here's our Tahitian Terrace chefs and servers, all very happy. Cottage cheese salad, my favorite, right? So this is one of the first menus, and strangely enough, all of the menu items had English names. Nothing had a Polynesian. Again, nothing Polynesian about any of this stuff. And if you really were, waiting for the show to start, they even provided some downtime reading in the back of the menu. This is a newer menu, and they finally had changed a lot of the names to Hawaiian. So we have moa and mahi mahi and all kinds of things on there. And then the Disneyland line. Any Disney cast members? Yeah, this is the Disney newspaper for us cast members. I've been a cast member here for 30 years, believe it or not. Thank you very much. That's enough of that. So in 1976, the Disneyland line did a feature article on the Tahitian Terrace, and I'll be around and maybe you're in this picture, I don't know. But yeah, it was, if you read this article, you know exactly how much of a great place this was to work. I think our folks over there will agree. They were very heavy on service, very heavy on hospitality, and very heavy on everyone having a good time. So, the most exciting part of the evening, the Royal Tahitians. This is our magic waterfall. From this waterfall, magically our dancers appear. And across the time in the evening, you will, as our friends Tapua here, will provide us a tour around the Polynesian and South Sea Islands. From the magic waterfall, of these photos from yesterday to these photos of most recently, from one island group to a next, with hospitality and fun. And actually Stefan, the leader of the group, was looking at these photos the other day and he said, "That's my uncle, that's my aunt." So he has a great history with the people who have performed at Tahitian Terrace. He knew the names of almost everybody that's up here, I think. And finally, we end with the Tahitians. But probably everybody's favorite part of the evening was the element that came out of that waterfall, the element of fire. And invariably, we have fire knives. And occasionally we had somebody who, well, maybe a little crazy, I don't know, who actually stood in fire and sometimes walked through fire. But on April 17th in 1993, the fire was lit for the last time. And when that fire went out, this sign went up. Tahitian Terrace was closed. But I can tell from everybody here tonight that the spirit of the Tahitian Terrace lives on. And so, I ask you to raise a glass to the Tahitian Terrace. Aloha e mahalo nui loa. And I hope you have a great night. Tapua will be back in a little bit. And I'll be around if anybody has any questions about this or Disneyland or my time here or whatever. So, thank you very much, folks. Have a nice evening. Mahalo nui loa. Aloha.